At Christmas dinner, my sister smirked and announced to the table that I would not last 1 week without this family. I did not argue. I simply placed my house keys on the table and walked out into the snow. 7 days later, the empire they prided themselves on began to crumble because they lost access. Now, the only person capable of saving them is the one they told to leave. My name is Addison Carey, and for 33 years, I have been the invisible glue holding the Carey dynasty together in Briarwood Falls. Our family name is plastered on street signs, community centers, and the massive development projects that are slowly eating up the surrounding forest. To the outside world, we are the picture of American success. To the people sitting around the mahogany table on December 25th, I was nothing more than a glorified administrative assistant who happened to share their DNA. The dining room was suffocatingly warm, smelling of pine needles and expensive roast beef. My father, Gordon Carey, sat at the head of the table, carving the meat with the precision of a surgeon and the warmth of a reptilian predator. To his right sat my older sister, Blair. She was wearing a red silk dress that probably cost more than my first car, swirling her wine glass with a look of perpetual boredom. "Addison," my father said, not looking up from the roast. "Did you handle the transfer for the contractors on the West Ridge project? I got a notification that the payment is pending." I set my fork down gently. "It is Christmas, Dad. The banks are closed." "Online banking is never closed," he countered, finally glancing at me with eyes that looked like polished steel. "Handle it before dessert. I do not want them stopping work on the 26th. "I will look at it," I said, my voice automatic. It was always automatic. I was the path of least resistance. Blair let out a sharp, tinkling laugh. "God, Addie, do you ever just say no? It is pathetic." I looked across the centerpiece of holly and ivy at my sister. "I am just trying to make sure the business runs smooth. Blair, since you are the face of public relations, I figured you would want the contractors paid so they do not go to the press." Blair rolled her eyes, taking a long sip of her Cabernet. "Please, you act like you are running the company. You just sign the checks Dad tells you to sign. You are basically a glorious secretary." "Someone has to ensure the checks actually clear," I murmured, taking a sip of water. "What was that?" Gordon asked, his voice low. "Nothing," I said. The dinner continued in a tense rhythm, clinking silverware, the heavy sighs of my father, and the constant, low-level hum of Blair's criticism. This was the price of admission for being a Carey. You accepted the abuse because, ostensibly, you were part of the elite, but I had felt less like a member of the elite and more like a hostage for the better part of a decade. "I am thinking of taking a trip to Aspen next week," Blair announced, picking at her potatoes. "Dad, I will need you to boost the limit on the black card. I maxed it out on the gifts for the gala." "Talk to Addison," Gordon grunted. "She manages the liquidity." Blair turned her gaze on me, her lip curling slightly. "Right, talk to Addison, because Addison controls the allowance." She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You love that, do not you? Being the gatekeeper, it makes you feel important." "I manage the accounts because Mom asked me to," I said. The mention of our mother making the air in the room drop 10 degrees. "Someone has to keep track of the spending. Blair, you spent $40,000 on catering for a party that did not even happen." "It was postponed," Blair snapped. "God, you are such a killjoy. You sit there in your drab little outfit, judging everyone, acting like you are the martyr. You know what your problem is?" I kept eating, though the food tasted like ash. "I am sure you are going to tell me." "You have no life," Blair said, her voice rising. "You have no friends. You have no boyfriend. You just cling to Dad and me because without us, you are nothing. You rely on the Carey name to open every door, and you rely on Dad's money to keep a roof over your head." I looked up. "I pay for my own apartment. Blair, I have my own salary." "A salary Dad pays you," she laughed. A cruel, jagged sound. "From a company Dad built. Do not delude yourself. Addie, You have never survived a day in the real world. You live in a bubble we created for you." Gordon did not intervene. He never did. He just chewed his roast beef, watching us with mild amusement, as if we were gladiators in a pit he owned. "I work hard," I said quietly. "You push paper," Blair corrected. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms, looking at me with absolute certainty. "Face it, Addison, you would not last 1 week without this family." The room went silent. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. I looked at Blair. She was smirking, waiting for me to look down, to apologize, to retreat into my shell as I had done 1,000 times before. I looked at Gordon. He was wiping his mouth with a linen napkin, indifferent to the humiliation of his youngest daughter. You would not last 1 week. Something inside me, a tension cable that had been pulled taut for years, finally snapped, but it did not snap with a bang. It snapped with a strange, silent release. I did not feel angry. I felt light. I looked at the half-eaten roast beef. I looked at the crystal wine glasses. I looked at the people who claimed to love me. "Is that so?" I asked softly. 100%, Blair said, emboldened by my calmness. "You would come crawling back in 3 days, begging for your job and your allowance." "Okay," I said. I stood up. The chair legs scraped against the hardwood floor, a harsh sound that made Gordon frown. "Sit down, Addison," Gordon said, his voice dropping into his command register. "We are not done eating." I reached into my blazer pocket. I pulled out a heavy ring of keys. There was the key to my apartment, which was technically owned by a Carey holding company. There was the key to my car, leased through the corporate fleet. There was the key to the main office downtown. There was the key to the safe in the study. I placed the metal cluster on the white tablecloth next to my plate. It made a dull thud. "What is this?" Gordon asked, staring at the keys. "Blair is right," I said. My voice was steady, clearer than it had been in years. "If I am so dependent, I should prove her wrong, or right. Let us see." "Addison, do not be dramatic," Blair scoffed, though her smile flickered slightly. "Sit down." "I am leaving," I said. "You have been drinking," Gordon said dismissively. "You are not driving anywhere." "I am not driving," I pointed out, gesturing to the keys on the table. "That is the company car. I would not want to rely on family property." "Where are you going to go?" Blair asked, her voice pitching up. "It is 10 degrees outside. You do not have a coat." "I have a coat," I said. "I bought it with my bonus check 2 years ago. I checked the ledger. That money was earned." I turned and walked toward the foyer. "Addison," Gordon barked, "if you walk out that door, do not think you are coming back to work on Monday. You are done. You understand me? Cut off." I paused at the archway. I looked back at them one last time. They looked small. They looked terrified, though they did not know it yet. They thought they were holding the leash, but they had just dropped it. "I understand perfectly," I said. "Enjoy dessert." I walked to the hall closet and grabbed my heavy wool coat. As I buttoned it, I felt the crinkle of paper in the inner pocket. It was a thick, cream-colored envelope. My mother, Mary Ann, had given it to me 3 days before she passed away from cancer 4 years ago. "Open this when you have had enough, Addie," she had whispered, her grip surprisingly strong on my wrist. "Not a moment before. When you are ready to walk away, open it." I had carried it to every holiday dinner since, hoping I would never need it. Today was the day. I opened the heavy oak front door and stepped out. The wind hit me like a physical blow. The snow was falling in thick, silent sheets, blanketing the manicured lawns of Briarwood Falls in white. The world was quiet. It was the silence of a graveyard, or perhaps a blank page. I began to walk down the long, winding driveway. The snow crunched under my boots. I did not have a plan for where I would sleep. I had a credit card in my wallet that was in my name, and about $200 in cash. That was it. I had barely reached the stone pillars at the end of the driveway when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it. It vibrated again and again, A continuous, angry buzz against my hip. I pulled it out, the screen glowing bright in the darkness. Message from Dad. Stop this nonsense. Get back inside. We have guests coming tomorrow. Message from Blair. You are being a brat. Seriously, turn around. It is freezing. Message from Dad. Addison, I am trying to log into the payroll system to approve the bonuses. The password is not working. Send it to me. Now. Message from Blair. Dad is pissed. Just text him the codes for the offshore accounts so he can calm down. Do not ruin Christmas. I stood there under the street lamp, snowflakes catching on my eyelashes. I read the messages, watching the desperation bleed through the angry text. They did not care that I was walking in the snow. They did not care if I froze. They cared that the password was not working. They had spent 30 years telling me I was useless, all while building a fortress that only I had the keys to unlock. They thought the power lay in the money, but the power lay in the access, and for the first time in my life, I was the one holding the switch. I looked at the notifications stacking up. 5, 10, 15 messages, demands, threats, panicked queries about two-factor authentication. I did not reply. I turned off the phone, shoved it deep into my pocket, and continued walking into the dark. White night. The 1-week countdown had begun. They said I would not last, but as I trudged through the snow, clutching my mother's envelope against my chest, I had a feeling that the Carey Empire was the one that was on the clock. The motel was called The Pines, though the only tree in sight was a plastic fir taped to the bulletproof glass of the check-in window. It sat on the edge of the highway, about 4 miles from the manicured gates of my family's estate. The room cost me $89 for the night. The sheets were stiff, smelling of industrial bleach and stale cigarette smoke, and the heater rattled like a dying engine every time it kicked on. For the first time in 10 years, I did not care about the quality of the linens. I lay on top of the covers, still wearing my wool coat, staring at the water stain on the ceiling. It was 2 a.m. Usually, at this hour on Christmas night, I would be awake, but I would not be lying down. I would be in the study at the big house, organizing the receipts from the day, reconciling the catering bill, or drafting the apology emails Blair needed to send to whatever donor she had offended after her 3rd glass of champagne. My entire adult life had been a series of damage control operations. I was the fixer. I was the eraser. I was the one who followed the parade with a shovel. But tonight, my hands were empty. I rolled over and pulled my phone from my pocket. I had turned it off when I walked out of the driveway. A small act of rebellion that felt like setting off a bomb. I held my thumb over the power button for a long moment. Part of me, the part that had been conditioned by 33 years of guilt, wanted to leave it off. I wanted to disappear. But the other part of me, the professional part, needed to know the blast radius. The screen lit up. The notifications cascaded down like a digital waterfall. 42 missed calls, 63 text messages, 12 voicemails. I bypassed the calls and went straight to the texts. I needed to see it in writing. I needed the evidence to solidify the cold, hard knot forming in my stomach. I scrolled past Blair's messages. They were predictable tantrums. Where are you? You are embarrassing us. Who has the key to the wine cellar? Then I stopped at the thread from my father. Gordon. His first message had come 10 minutes after I walked out. Addison, the security alarm is beeping. You are the only one who knows the reset code. Send it. 30 minutes later, I cannot approve the wire transfer for the Aspen House rental without the 2-factor token. It is sending the code to your phone. Forward it immediately. 1 hour later. This is childish. We have a board meeting on Tuesday. The files are on your laptop. Bring it back, or I will send the police to find you for theft of company property. I read the messages twice, then a 3rd time. I was looking for 3 specific words. Are you safe? Or perhaps, are you cold? Even a simple, come home. There was nothing, not a single syllable of concern for my physical well-being. I had walked out into a blizzard without a car, and my father's only concern was that he could not reset the alarm or pay for a vacation rental. It was a moment of clarity so sharp it almost drew blood. They did not miss me. They did not miss Addison, the daughter, the sister, the human being. They missed the administrator. They missed the password keeper. They missed the access. I worked for a firm called Northbridge Compliance Solutions. It was a rigorous, high-stakes job where I analyzed corporate risk, ensured regulatory adherence, and managed complex liability shields for high-net-worth individuals. My family knew the name of the company, but they never asked what I actually did. To them, compliance just meant paperwork. They assumed I was a glorified filing clerk who happened to handle their personal estates on the side. They did not understand that for the last decade, I had been applying the same rigorous risk management strategies to the Carey family that I applied to Fortune 500 companies. I had built the firewalls. I had structured the trusts. I had insulated them from their own stupidity. And because I had done my job so well, they thought the safety they enjoyed was natural. They thought the money just flowed and the legal problems just vanished. They had no idea that I was the dam holding back the flood. I sat up on the edge of the bed, the springs groaning beneath me. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the cream-colored envelope. It was heavy, sealed with red wax that had cracked slightly over the years. My mother, Mary Ann, had been a quiet woman. In a house full of loud voices and sharp elbows, she had been a ghost. Gordon had bullied her, and Blair had ignored her, treating her as little more than a piece of furniture. I had been her only ally. We used to spend hours in the greenhouse, the only place where Gordon never went because the humidity ruined his suits. I closed my eyes, remembering the smell of damp earth and orchids. "You are too smart for them, Addie," she had told me once, her hands deep in potting soil. "That is your danger. You think if you are smart enough and helpful enough, they will eventually love you the way you deserve, but they will not. They will just use you more efficiently." I had denied it then. I wanted to believe that if I just worked harder, if I just saved the company one more time, my father would look at me with pride instead of utility. The week before she died, she had called me to her bedside. She looked frail, her skin like parchment paper, but her eyes were clear. She had handed me this envelope. "I made arrangements," she had whispered. "Gordon thinks I'm stupid. He thinks I signed whatever he put in front of me, and I did, but I also signed things he never saw." She had squeezed my hand. "This envelope contains the keys to your freedom, Addison, but you cannot use it until you are ready to burn the bridge. Once you open this, there is no going back." I looked at the envelope in the dim motel light. To be opened when you have had enough. Was I there? Was I really done? My phone buzzed again, a new message. I braced myself for another demand from Gordon. But the name on the screen was not a Carey. Mara Keene. My breath caught in my throat. Mara was a shark of a lawyer, a woman who terrified most of the partners at my firm. She had been my mother's college roommate, and more importantly, her private counsel. I had not spoken to her since the funeral. I opened the message. I saw the security alert on the Family Trust mainframe. It says administrative access has been suspended from the main IP address. Gordon is locked out. Are you safe? Addison? I stared at the screen. A lawyer I had not seen in 4 years was asking the question my own father had not. "I am safe," I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly. I left. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then a reply. "Did you open the envelope?" I looked at the wax seal. Not yet. "Good," Mara replied. "Do not open it alone. There are legal implications you need to understand before you pull that trigger. I am at my office. I know it is Christmas, but I have been waiting for this night for a long time. Come see me." I looked at the time. It was now 2:15 in the morning. The easy path was to ignore Mara. The easy path was to text Gordon the password for the alarm, transfer the money for the Aspen trip, and go back to the house tomorrow morning. I could blame it on stress. I could apologize. I could say the snow made me irrational. They would mock me for a few months. Blair would make jokes about my mental breakdown, and everything would go back to normal. I would be safe in my misery. But then I looked at the text from Gordon again. Theft of company property. He was threatening to arrest me, his daughter, because I had inconvenienced him. I stood up and walked to the motel mirror. I looked tired. My hair was messy, my eyes were red-rimmed, and my expensive Christmas dinner outfit looked out of place in the dingy room. But for the first time, the face looking back at me did not look scared. It looked cold. I put the envelope back in my pocket. I grabbed my purse. I was not going to send the code. I was not going to apologize. I typed a reply to Mara. I will be there in 20 minutes. I walked out of the motel room and into the freezing night. The wind had died down, leaving the world silent and encased in ice. I did not have a car, so I called a rideshare service, watching the little car icon inch toward me on the map. Gordon and Blair were probably still awake, pacing the floors of the estate, furious that their servant had gone rogue. They thought this was a tantrum. They thought I was playing a game of hide-and-seek. They had no idea that I was done playing. I was going to see the lawyer, and for the first time in my life, I was not going to speak to defend them. I was going to speak to destroy them. The car pulled up, its headlights cutting through the dark. I got in. "Where to?" the driver asked, looking at me in the rearview mirror. "Downtown," I said. "Keene and Associates." As we drove away, I deleted the draft text I had started to write to my father. It had been an explanation, a justification. I realized then that silence was louder. Silence was the one thing they could not argue with, the one thing they could not manipulate. I was done explaining my value to people who could not afford my rates. The text remained deleted. The phone remained silent. And as the city lights of Briarwood Falls came into view, I felt the heavy weight of the envelope against my heart, ticking like a countdown clock. The office of Keene and Associates was located on the 14th floor of a glass tower that overlooked the sleeping city of Briarwood Falls. The building was silent, the kind of heavy, pressurized silence that exists in places where millions of dollars are moved with the stroke of a pen. Mara Keene met me at the elevator. She was a small woman with hair the color of iron filings and eyes that missed nothing. She wore a tailored suit at 3 a.m, looking as if she had been expecting me for years rather than minutes. "You look like her," Mara said, not as a greeting, but as a statement of fact. "Especially around the eyes when you are angry." "I am not angry," I said, stepping into the hallway. "I am just tired." "Good," she said, turning on her heel. "Tired people make mistakes, but exhausted people? Exhausted people stop caring about consequences. That is exactly where I need you to be." She led me into her corner office. It was stark, lined with bookshelves filled with legal binders. On her desk, a single file folder sat waiting. It was thick. I sat down in the leather chair opposite her. "You said you have been waiting for this night." "Your mother, Marianne, came to me 5 years ago," Mara said, sitting down and folding her hands over the file. "She knew she was sick before she told anyone, and she knew that once she was gone, Gordon and Blair would consume you." "They have certainly tried," I said. "They did not just try, Addison. They succeeded. They turned you into a high-functioning servant." Mara tapped the file. But Marianne knew Gordon better than anyone. She knew his arrogance was his blind spot. Gordon Carey never reads the fine print. He assumes that because he is the patriarch, the laws bend to his will. Mara opened the file. She spun it around so it faced me. I looked at the documents. They were complex trust agreements, incorporation papers for Carey Ridge developments, and banking authorizations. My compliance training kicked in immediately. I scanned the clauses, the definitions, the signatories. My breath hitched. "This cannot be right," I whispered. "Read the preamble to the operational clause," Mara instructed. I read it aloud, my voice trembling in the empty office. "In the event of the death of Marianne Carey, all controlling interest in the Class A voting shares of Carey Ridge Developments transfers immediately to the Marianne Carey Testamentary Trust, the sole trustee of which shall be—" I stopped. I looked at my name typed in bold, black letters, Addison Carey. "Mom owned the voting shares?" I asked. Dad always said he owned 51% of the company. He owns 51% of the equity, Mara corrected, a sharp smile appearing on her face. He gets the dividends, he gets the profits, but your mother owned the control. She owned the right to appoint the board, the right to authorize debt, and the right to freeze assets. And when she died, she did not leave those shares to Gordon. She left them to the trust. And I am the trustee, I said, the realization washing over me like ice water. You are the trustee, Mara confirmed, but it goes deeper. Look at the second document. It is the master liquidity agreement for the family accounts. I flipped the page. This was a document I recognized. I had seen the cover sheet 1,000 times. It was the agreement that governed how the family paid for their cars, their vacations, their gala dinners. I manage this account, I said. I move money out of it every week. You move money because you authorize it, Mara said. Gordon thinks you are an authorized user on his account. That is not what this document says. This document says that the primary capital account belongs to the trust. You are not a user. Addison, you are the owner. Gordon is the beneficiary. He has an allowance that you control. I sat back, stunned. Why did she never tell me? I have spent 4 years begging Dad for approval to fix the roof. I have spent years listening to Blair scream at me about her credit limit. I could have stopped them at any time. If you had known, Mara said softly, Gordon would have known. He would have bullied you until you signed it over to him. You were not ready. Addison, you were still seeking their approval. Marianne knew you had to reach the breaking point. You had to walk out that door on your own 2 feet before you could wield this weapon. She pointed to the pocket of my coat. Now, open the letter. I pulled out the cream-colored envelope. The wax seal finally cracked under my thumb. The paper inside was thick, expensive stationery that smelled faintly of my mother's lavender perfume. I unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, written near the end, but the words were deliberate. My dearest Addison, if you are reading this, it means you have finally left the table. I am so proud of you. I know you are angry that I left you in that house with them. I know you felt abandoned, but I had to hide your power until you were strong enough to use it. Your father is a man who builds cages. He built one for me, and I let him. I spent my life making myself small so he could feel big. I did not want that for you. You are the smartest person in that family. Addison, you are the only one who knows how the machine actually works. Gordon thinks he is the engine, but he is just the hood ornament. You are the gears. I have given you the keys to the kingdom, not so you can rule them, but so you can free yourself. They will tell you that you owe them. They will tell you that family is everything. But family is not about blood. It is about who stands by you in the cold. Do not let them bully you. Do not let them guilt you. And above all, do not give them the access codes. Burn it down if you have to, sweet girl. Then build something better. Love, Mom. I lowered the letter. A single tear tracked down my cheek, hot and fast. I wiped it away before it could hit the paper. She knew, I whispered. She knew exactly what they would say. She watched them for 30 years, Mara said. She knew them better than they know themselves. Just then, my phone, which I had placed face down on Mara's desk, began to buzz violently. It vibrated against the mahogany surface like an angry hornet. Turn it over, Mara said. I flipped the phone. The screen was a blur of notifications. Text from Blair. My card was declined at the club. What did you do? Text from Gordon. The bank says the operating account is frozen pending trustee verification. Fix this now. Text from Blair. I am standing here with the caterer for the New Year's party and I look like an idiot. Pick up the phone. Text from Gordon. If you do not call me in 5 minutes, I am calling the sheriff. You have hacked our accounts. I looked up at Mara. They are panicking. Of course they are, Mara said calmly. It is December 26th. The automatic monthly sweep from the trust to the operating account usually happens at midnight, but since you are the trustee, and you are not there to authorize the digital handshake, the The system defaulted to security mode. It locked everything down. I did not even do anything, I said. I just left. Exactly, Mara said. You stopped pushing the button, and without you pushing the button, the machine stops. The phone buzzed again. Gordon was calling now. His contact photo, a stern picture of him in a tuxedo, flashed on the screen. My hand instinctively reached for the phone. It was a reflex honed by decades of obedience. When Gordon called, I answered. When Gordon demanded, I provided. Mara reached out and placed her hand over mine, pinning it to the desk. Her skin was cool, her grip firm. No, she said. He will call the police, I said, panic rising in my chest. He said he would. Let him, Mara said. The police will call me, and I will show them the trust documents proving that you are the legal owner of those funds and that Gordon has been spending your money for 4 years. If he calls the police, he is filing a report against himself for embezzlement. I pulled my hand back. Embezzlement? Technically, Mara said, if he used trust funds for non-approved expenses, like, say, Blair's jewelry or his gambling debts, without the trustee's explicit informed consent, that is misappropriation. You were signing checks, Addison, but you were under duress and misinformed about your legal standing. We can make a case that every dollar they spent in the last 4 years is a debt they owe to you. The room spun slightly. I was not just free, I was their creditor. What do I do? I asked. You do nothing, Mara said. That is the hardest part. You do not answer. You do not explain. You do not justify. You let them sit in the mess they created. She slid a new phone across the desk. It was a sleek, black device. This is your new number, she said. Only I have it. Leave your old phone here. We will archive the messages for evidence of harassment. I looked at the old phone, still buzzing with the rage of the Carey family. Then I looked at the new phone. Silent, clean. Blair said I would not last a week, I said. Blair is about to find out that she cannot last 24 hours, Mara replied. I picked up the new phone. It felt light in my hand. They need the signature for the Ridge development, I said, my mind racing to the business implications. The bridge loan expires on the 30th. If I do not sign the renewal as trustee, then the loan is called in, Mara finished, and since the company has no liquidity because the accounts are frozen, they will default. It will destroy the credit rating, I said. It will tank the stock value. Yes, Mara said. It will. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. Do you want to save them, Addison? Do you want to pick up that phone, give them the code, and go back to being the girl who sits at the end of the table and gets insulted? I thought about the roast beef. I thought about the keys I left on the table. I thought about my mother, dying in that big, cold house, worrying that I would never escape. I thought about the snow on my face when I walked out. No, I said, I do not want to save them. Then let it burn, Mara said. Go to the safe house. I have a place prepared for you. It is out of town. No internet, no landline, just quiet. Where? I asked. Your mother's old cabin, Mara said. Up at Glacier Spur. She put it in the trust, too. Gordon thinks he sold it 10 years ago. He did not. She bought it back through a shell company. I stood up. The trembling in my legs had stopped. A strange, cold calm had taken its place. I will go, I said. Leave the old phone, Mara reminded me. I looked at the screen one last time. A text from Blair had just come through. Addie, please, I cannot pay the bill. Everyone is watching. I smiled. It was a small, sad smile. Merry Christmas, Blair, I whispered. I left the buzzing phone on the desk and walked out of the office, clutching the letter from my mother like a shield. The elevator ride down felt different than the ride up. I was no longer falling. I was landing. I had walked in as a fugitive. I was walking out as the owner of the empire, and the empire was about to find out that the servant they mocked held the only set of keys. The collapse of the Carey family dynasty did not happen with an explosion. It happened with the soft, digital chime of declined transactions. It had been less than 48 hours since I left my keys on the Christmas dinner table, but the fallout was already radioactive. I sat in the passenger seat of a nondescript rental sedan that Mara had arranged, parked 2 blocks away from my own apartment building. I needed to go inside. I needed my heavy winter gear, my hiking boots, and the few personal items that actually belonged to me, not the family trust. But I could not go in yet. Through the windshield, I watched a black SUV screech to a halt in front of my building. My sister, Blair, jumped out. She was not wearing her usual pristine cashmere coat. She was wearing a mismatched tracksuit, and her hair, usually a helmet of perfect blonde waves, was pulled back in a severe, messy bun. She was pacing back and forth in front of the lobby doors, frantically typing on her phone. My new phone, the secure one Mara had given me, buzzed with an incoming email from Mara's office. She was forwarding me the logs from my old device. Voicemail from Blair. Time, 8:45 in the morning. Addie? Pick up? Seriously, the florist for the New Year's Eve gala just called. The deposit check bounced. Do you hear me? It bounced. He is threatening to pull the flowers. Daddy is going to kill me. Fix it. Voicemail from Blair. Time, 9:30 in the morning. Okay. I am sorry about the no life comment. Is that what you want to hear? I am sorry. Now log in and wire the funds. The caterer is holding the truck. This is not funny anymore. Voicemail from Blair. Time, 10:15 in the morning. You bitch. You did this on purpose. Do you know who is coming to this party? The mayor. Senator Gibson. If we have no food and no flowers, we are ruined. I will sue you. I swear to God. Addison, I will come find you and drag you back to the office. I watched the real-life Blair kick the tire of the SUV. She looked small. She looked desperate. For the first time in my life, I was seeing my sister not as the golden child, but as a parasite who had suddenly realized the host was gone. Ready? The driver asked. He was one of Mara's private security detail, a large man named Silas who spoke very little. Give her 5 minutes, I said. She hates the cold. She will leave. Sure enough, 3 minutes later, Blair screamed something at the empty air, got back into her SUV, and peeled away. Now, I said. I ran up to my apartment. It took me 20 minutes to pack 2 duffel bags. I grabbed my thermal layers, my waterproof boots, and the few framed photos I had of my mother. As I was zipping up the last bag, the intercom buzzed. I froze. Addison? It was not the doorman. It was Blair. She had not left. She had just circled the block and waited. She must have seen the lights turn on. I know you are up there, she yelled into the intercom speaker. Her voice was tinny and distorted. Let me up. I walked over to the panel and pressed the talk button. Go home, Blair. I cannot go home, she shrieked. Dad is tearing the house apart. He smashed his laptop because he could not get into the offshore accounts. You changed the passwords. I did not change them, I said calm, leaning my forehead against the cool plastic of the intercom. I just never gave them to you. And since I am the only authorized administrator, the system locked you out after 3 failed attempts. That is a security feature. Unlock it, Blair demanded. Her voice cracked. Please, Addie, the gala is in 2 days. If I cancel it, I look like a failure. Everyone is already talking about why you were not at brunch yesterday. I told them you were sick. I am not sick, I said. I am done. What do you want? Blair asked. The anger was leaking out, replaced by a terrified bargaining. You want an apology? Fine. I am sorry. You are vital to the family. We need you. Is that it? You want a raise? Dad will give you whatever you want. Just come down here and sign the checks. I closed my eyes. Even now, she did not get it. She thought this was a negotiation. She thought my dignity had a price tag. I do not want money, Blair, I said. Then why are you stealing ours? She accused. I am not taking anything, I said, my voice steady and hard. I just stopped carrying it for you. There is a difference. I released the button. The line went dead. I could hear her screaming my name from the street below, but the sound was muffled by the double-paned glass. I picked up my bags and took the service elevator down to the alley where Silas was waiting. As we drove away, my secure phone rang. It was a direct line from the fraud department of Sovereign Bank. "Ms. Carey?" the agent asked. "This is Agent Miller from the High Net Worth Fraud Division. We have flagged a priority alert on your primary trust account." "Go ahead," I said, putting the phone on speaker so Silas could hear. At 11 a.m. this morning, an individual identified as Gordon Carey attempted to access the safe deposit box at the downtown branch, the agent said. "He claimed to have your power of attorney. He presented a document dated 3 years ago." My blood ran cold. "I never signed a power of attorney." "We noticed that," Agent Miller said. "The signature did not match the biometric sample we have on file for you. It appears to be a forgery. We denied him access and confiscated the document. He became belligerent." "Belligerent?" "He threatened to have the branch manager fired and claimed he owned the bank," Miller said dryly. "Security had to escort him out, Ms. Carey, given the size of the assets in the Marianne Carey Trust. We are legally obligated to freeze all associated accounts pending a fraud investigation. This includes the credit lines extended to Carey Ridge Developments." "I understand," I said. "Do you wish to authorize a one-time exception for family emergency funds?" the agent asked. "Usually in these cases, we allow a small stipend for living expenses." I looked out the window. We were passing the exit for the country club where my father spent his afternoons playing poker with money he evidently did not have. "No," I said. "No exceptions. Freeze it all. If he tries to access the funds again, I want a full report sent to my lawyer, Mara Keene." "Understood. Stay safe, Ms. Carey." The call ended. I sat in the silence of the car, feeling the weight of what I had just done. I had just cut the oxygen line. My phone pinged with a new message from Mara. "The bank just notified me. Gordon is calling everyone he knows. He is telling the board members that you have had a mental breakdown and are holding the company hostage. He is accusing you of corporate sabotage." I typed back, "Let him talk." "He is doing more than talking," Mara replied. "He just sent a courier to your apartment with a cease and desist order. He is threatening to sue you for fiduciary negligence. He is terrified. Addison, he knows that without that line of credit, the construction loans for the West Ridge project will default on the 1st of the month. That is 5 days away. Let them default." I wrote, "Good girl," Mara answered, "but listen to me. This is the dangerous part. When a narcissist loses control, they do not reflect, they attack. Gordon will try to find you. He will try to physically force you to sign those papers. You need to get to the cabin, now." "Drive," I told Silas. "Get us to the highway." We sped up, leaving the gray slush of the city behind. As the buildings gave way to pine trees and snow-covered fields, I opened my laptop and began to do the one thing I was best at, documentation. I created a new folder labeled Evidence. I saved the voicemail transcripts from Blair. I saved the fraud alert report from the bank. I saved the text messages where Gordon demanded passwords he had no legal right to. I downloaded the access logs from the company server, showing hundreds of failed login attempts from my father's IP address in the last 12 hours. They thought I was just the secretary. They forgot that the secretary is the one who keeps the minutes. I was building a paper trail that would turn their accusations of sabotage into a clear-cut case of financial abuse and attempted fraud. Silas turned onto the winding mountain road that led toward Glacier Spur. The snow was deeper here, pristine and white, untouched by the grime of the city. My old life was burning down behind me. The gala would be canceled. The construction crews would walk off the job. The reputation my father had spent 40 years polishing was about to be tarnished by bounced checks and security escorts. And for the first time, I did not feel the urge to fix it. I looked at the folder on my screen. I renamed it The Truth. I closed the laptop and watched the mountains rise up to meet us. The cabin was ahead, my mother's sanctuary, and inside that cabin, inside the wooden box she had hidden, lay the rest of the story. I was not just running away anymore. I was going to arm myself. The Carey empire was cracking, and I was going to be the one to swing the hammer. The cabin at Glacier Spur was not the rustic retreat I remembered from my childhood. It was a fortress of solitude buried under 4 feet of fresh snow. Surrounded by towering pines that blocked out the weak winter sun, the air up here was thin and bit at my lungs, sharp with the scent of pine resin and coming storms. Silas had parked the car at the bottom of the long, uncleared driveway, and we had hiked the last quarter-mile in silence. Inside, the air was stale and cold, preserved like a tomb. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light cutting through the heavy curtains. I left Silas to check the perimeter and walked straight to the master bedroom. My mother's instructions in the letter had been vague, but specific enough for me. Look where I used to watch the storms, Addie. There was a window seat in the corner of the bedroom, upholstered in faded velvet. I remembered sitting there with her when I was 10, watching lightning strike the valley floor while she stroked my hair. I knelt before the seat and ran my hands along the wooden base. The carpentry was seamless, but my mother knew secrets about this house that even the builders had forgotten. I found the pressure point under the trim, a small knot in the wood that pushed inward. With a soft click, the panel popped open. Inside lay a simple box made of polished walnut. It was heavy. I lifted it out and set it on the dusty floor, my heart hammering against my ribs not with exertion, but with dread. I had the keys to the empire, but Mara had warned me that this box contained the bodies buried in the foundation. I opened the lid. There was no money inside, just paper, stacks of it, organized with the meticulous care of a woman who knew she was running out of time. On top sat a black USB drive and a leather-bound notebook. I picked up the first stack of papers. It was a loan agreement from a private equity firm in Chicago. Borrower: Carey Ridge Developments. Guarantor: Addison Carey. Amount: $5 million. Date: October 14th, 2021. I stared at the signature at the bottom of the page. It was my name. It was my loop on the A, my sharp cross on the T. It looked exactly like my handwriting. But on October 14th, 2021, I had been in the hospital with pneumonia. I had been on a ventilator for 3 days. I could not have lifted a pen, let alone signed a $5 million liability waiver. I turned the page. Another loan, this one for $2 million, secured against my personal future earnings, dated 6 months ago. I flipped through the stack faster, my breath coming in shallow gasps. A line of credit from an offshore bank in the Caymans, a mortgage taken out on the apartment building I lived in, the one I thought the company owned free and clear, a personal guarantee for a fleet of luxury cars that Blair drove. Every single document bore my signature. They did not just use me to manage the money, I whispered to the empty room. They used me to become the debt. I grabbed the notebook. It was my mother's journal. The entries were sporadic, written in a shaky hand that deteriorated near the end. January 12th. I found Gordon in the study practicing her signature. He laughed when I caught him. He said it is just for convenience. He said Addison would not mind helping the family. I told him it is fraud. He told me to go back to bed and take my medicine. March 4th. Blair knows. I heard them arguing. She is not angry that he is forging Addison's name. She is angry that he did not forge it for a higher amount. She wants the renovation on the pool house. They are eating her alive, and she does not even know she is the meal. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. I had spent years thinking I was the dutiful daughter, the one who kept the lights on. In reality, I was the designated victim. They had piled every toxic asset, every risky loan, and every bad debt onto my shoulders, using a pen and a steady hand. If the company went under, Gordon and Blair would walk away clean. I would be the one facing bankruptcy. I would be the one facing prison for fraud. My hands shook as I reached for the printed emails. My mother must have hacked Gordon's account before she died. From Gordon Carey to Blair Carey. Subject: the audit. Do not worry about the auditors. I moved the liability to the trust account. As long as Addison does not check the external credit reports, and you know she never does because she trusts us, we are clear. Her credit score is perfect. We can leverage it for another 10 million before the banks get suspicious. Keep her busy with the gala. Keep her tired. If she starts asking questions, tell her she is being paranoid. From Blair Carey to Gordon Carey. Subject, re the audit. Just make sure my name is not on the guarantee. Dad, I cannot lose the house in the Hamptons. Let Addie take the fall if the market turns. She is used to cleaning up messes anyway. I dropped the paper. It fluttered to the floor like a dead leaf. Let Addie take the fall. The sentence burned into my retinas. The Christmas dinner, the insults, you would not last a week. It was all a distraction. They needed me to feel small so I would not look up and see the axe swinging toward my neck. They needed me to be the insecure little sister so they could rob me blind. I looked at the USB drive. I did not want to hear it. Reading it was bad enough. Hearing it would make it real in a way I could not unsee. But I had to know. I pulled my laptop from my bag, sat on the floor, and plugged in the drive. There was a single audio file titled, The Last Talk. I pressed play. The sound of static filled the room, followed by the heavy clack of a cane against hardwood. My father's footsteps. Why are you recording this, Marianne? Gordon's voice was sharp, impatient. Because I want you to say it. My mother's voice answered. She sounded weak, breathless, but her tone was steel. I want you to admit what you are doing to her. I am doing what is necessary, Gordon shouted. The audio spiked. The development in the West Ridge is bleeding cash. The interest rates are killing us. We need liquidity. Addison has the assets. The trust is in her name. It is family money anyway. It is fraud, Gordon, my mother said. You are signing her name to loans you cannot repay. You are building a house of cards on your own daughter's back. When this collapses, and it will collapse, she will be the one the FBI comes for. She will be fine, Gordon scoffed. I have lawyers. We will plead ignorance. We will say she was overwhelmed. Or maybe we say she made some bad calls. She is the trustee. After all, it is her responsibility. There was a long silence on the recording. Then, my mother's voice, quiet and terrifying. You are planning to frame her. I am planning to survive, Gordon roared. I built this name. I built this town. I will not let a bank take it away just because the market had a bad quarter. Addison is the shield. Marianne, that is her function. She protects the real legacy. She is your child, my mother wept. She is an employee, Gordon said coldly, and a very useful one. Now give me the stamp. I have papers to sign. The recording ended with the sound of a door slamming. I sat in the silence of the cabin, the laptop humming on my lap. Tears were streaming down my face, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of pure, molten rage. I was not a daughter to them. I was not a sister. I was a human shield. I was an insurance policy. They had looked at me across the dinner table for years, not seeing a person, but seeing a scapegoat they were fattening up for the slaughter. The 1-week challenge, Blair's taunt, it all made sense now. They were terrified I would leave, not because they would miss me, but because without me, there was no one left to blame for the financial crater they had dug. The company was not just struggling, it was dead. It had been dead for years, kept animated by illegal loans taken out in my name. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. The skin felt raw. I looked at the pile of documents, the evidence of grand larceny, identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy. My mother had saved it all. She had given me the weapon, but she had left it up to me to pull the trigger. I stood up. My legs felt steady. The cold in the cabin did not bother me anymore. I felt a fire burning in my chest that could melt the snow on the roof. I gathered the papers. I put the USB drive in my pocket. I was not going to hide in this cabin. I was not going to wait for them to find me and beg for forgiveness. I walked to the window and looked out at the white expanse of the forest. Somewhere down that mountain, in the town of Briarwood Falls, my father and sister were frantically trying to cover their tracks. They were probably shredding documents right now. They were probably calling their lawyers to spin a story about how the unstable daughter had run off with the keys. But they did not know about the box. They did not know I had the recordings. I picked up my secure phone and dialed Mara Keene. "Addison?" she answered on the first ring. "I found it," I said. My voice sounded different to my own ears, deeper, harder. "What is in there?" Mara asked. "Everything," I said. "Forged signatures, evidence of identity theft, and a recording of Gordon admitting he planned to frame me for the collapse of the company." Mara let out a long breath. My God, Marianne really did get it all. "They stole $15 million in my name, Mara," I said, "and they were going to let me go to prison for it." "We can go to the FBI," Mara said. "We have enough to put Gordon away for 20 years. But Addison, if we do this, there is no coming back. The company will be seized. The assets will be liquidated. The name Carey will be synonymous with fraud." "Good," I said. "Are you sure?" Mara asked. "It means destroying everything you spent your life protecting." I looked down at the loan document with my forged signature. I looked at the day I was in the hospital, fighting to breathe, while my father used my hand to sign away my future. "I am not protecting it anymore," I said. "I am burning it down." "Okay," Mara said. "I will prepare the filing. But stay at the cabin. Once we file this, Gordon will be desperate. A desperate man is a dangerous man." "Let him come," I said. "I have something for him." I hung up the phone. I walked to the fireplace and began to stack logs on the grate. I struck a match and watched the flame curl around the dry wood. The fire caught, casting long, dancing shadows against the walls. I was done being the victim. I was done being the shield. Gordon Carey wanted a fight? He wanted to talk about survival? I threw the match into the fire. He was about to find out that the daughter he sacrificed was the only one who knew how to hunt in the dark. The silence of the cabin was deceptive. Outside, the snow lay heavy and still on the pines. But inside, the digital world was screaming. It started at 7 a.m. on the third day of my exile. I was sitting by the fire, drinking black coffee and watching the steam rise, when my secure laptop pinged with a priority notification from Mara. It was a legal summons. Gordon had moved faster than we anticipated. He had not just called his usual corporate attorneys. He had hired Arthur Sterling, a man known in legal circles as the Butcher of State Street. Sterling was the kind of lawyer you hired when you wanted to destroy someone's life, not just win a case. I opened the document. The language was violent in its formality. "Cease and desist order. Plaintiff. Gordon Carey. CEO. Carey Ridge Developments. Defendant. Addison Carey." The document accused me of misappropriation of trade secrets, unauthorized access to proprietary financial systems, and, most galling of all, breach of fiduciary duty due to mental incapacitation. They were playing the insanity card. My phone rang. It was Mara. "Do not read the whole thing," she warned, her voice tight. "It is designed to scare you. It is a bullying tactic." "He says I am unstable," I said, scrolling down to paragraph 4. "He claims I have a history of erratic behavior and that my disappearance is proof of a psychotic break. He is petitioning for an emergency conservatorship. Mara. He wants to take legal control of me. He is trying to get ahead of the narrative," Mara explained. "He knows the accounts are frozen. If he can get a judge to declare you incompetent, he can appoint himself as your temporary guardian. That would give him the power to unlock the trust and sign those loans himself." I felt a cold shiver that had nothing to do with the drafty cabin. "Can he do that?" "Not without a fight," Mara said. "But he is throwing mud to see what sticks. And he is not just doing it in court. Have you seen the Briarwood Gazette online?" "No," I said. "Don't," she advised. "But I have to tell you, Blair is talking." I hung up and immediately opened the local news site. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to know the shape of the weapon being used against me. The headline was plastered across the top banner: "Concern grows for missing Carey heiress." I clicked the link. It was not a news article. It was a carefully curated hit piece disguised as a human interest story. There was a photo of Blair, looking tearful and perfectly made up. standing on the steps of the family estate. "We just want her home," Blair was quoted as saying. "Addison has been under a lot of pressure lately. She has been imagining things, making wild accusations. We are terrified she might hurt herself or someone else. If anyone sees her, please do not approach her. She is not in her right mind. Just call the police." I scrolled down to the comments section. It was a cesspool. I always knew the quiet one was the crazy one. She probably ran off with the company payroll. Drugs? It is always drugs with these rich kids. I slammed the laptop shut. Blair was not just spinning a story. She was isolating me. She was turning the entire town into a surveillance network by painting me as dangerous and unstable. She ensured that if I tried to walk into a bank or a police station, I would be treated as a threat, not a victim. "Smart," I whispered to the empty room. "Evil, but smart." My phone buzzed again. This time, the number was unknown. It was not Mara, and it was not a Carrie. I hesitated. Mara had told me to answer nothing, but curiosity is a dangerous reflex. I swiped accept but stayed silent. "Ms. Carrie?" A man's voice, dry, precise, professional. "This is David Lancer. I am the lead auditor for the firm tasked with the quarterly review of Carrie Ridge developments." My heart stopped. The auditors, they were not supposed to start for another 2 weeks. "How did you get this number?" I asked. "Your father gave it to us," Lancer said. "He said you were unreachable, but provided this as an emergency contact. He claims you are the only one who can explain certain irregularities." I gripped the phone tighter. Gordon had set me up. He gave them the number so I would have to answer for his crimes. "What irregularities, Mr. Lancer?" "We are looking at the ledger for the West Ridge expansion," Lancer said. His tone was not accusatory yet, but it was heavy with suspicion. "There is a withdrawal of $300,000 dated December 20th. It is marked as consulting fees paid to a shell company in Panama. The authorizing signature is yours." December 20th. I was at the dentist that morning. I remembered it because I had a cavity filled. "I did not authorize that transfer," I said clearly. "The digital signature matches your key," Lancer countered. "Ms. Carey, I have to be frank. We have found 7 similar transfers in the last 6 months, totaling nearly $2 million. All of them bypass standard accounting protocols. All of them are signed by you." "I am telling you, I did not sign them," I said, my voice rising. "Then you need to come in and prove it," Lancer said. "If you do not provide an explanation within 24 hours, I am legally obligated to file a suspicious activity report with the IRS and the FBI. Given the amount of money involved, this is federal wire fraud. Ms. Carey, you are looking at 10 to 15 years. Mr. Lancer?" 24 hours, he repeated, "or I file the report." The line went dead. I sat there, the phone slipping from my sweaty palm. It was a pincer movement. Gordon was squeezing me from the civil side with the conservatorship, and he was pushing the auditors to nail me on the criminal side. He was using the very timeline he created to crush me. If I stayed hidden, the auditor would file the report, and I would become a federal fugitive. If I went back to town to clear my name, Gordon would have me committed before I could even open my mouth. I dialed Mara back. My hands were shaking, but my mind was sharpening. The panic was burning off, leaving only cold calculation. "They moved the audit up," I told her. "They are trying to pin the embezzlement on me before we can file our evidence." Mara swore softly. "Gordon is desperate. He is burning the furniture to keep the house warm. Listen to me. Addison, we need to file the injunction now. I am going to the judge in 1 hour. I am taking the digital copies of the evidence you sent me." "It might not be enough," I said. "Copies can be challenged. They will say I doctored the audio. They will say I forged the journals." "It is all we have," Mara argued. "Unless you want to bring the physical box to the courthouse, which I strongly advise against, Gordon has private security crawling all over the city. If they catch you with that box, it will disappear, and so will you." "Where are they?" I asked. "Who?" "Gordon and Blair. Where are they right now? They are at the estate, Mara said. But Silas tells me they have hired a private investigation firm, a group called Blackwood Solutions. These guys are ex-military. They are not looking for you to serve papers. Addison, they are looking for you to extract you. They are tracking the car. I realized suddenly, the rental, it has a GPS transponder. Silas disabled the standard GPS, Mara said. Not the standard one, I said, my mind racing back to my work and compliance. The fleet tracker. Rental agencies put a secondary, passive tracker in the wheel well for theft recovery. If Gordon's PI has a contact at the rental agency, I looked out the window at the sedan parked in the snow at the bottom of the drive. Silas, I yelled. Silas, who had been standing guard by the door, turned sharply. The car, I said. Check the wheel wells. Silas didn't ask questions. He grabbed his coat and ran out into the snow. I watched from the window as he knelt by the rear tire of the sedan. He reached up into the chassis. He pulled his hand back. He was holding a small black magnetic box. He looked up at the window and nodded grimly. They knew where I was. I grabbed the phone. Mara, they found me. They know I am at the cabin. Get out, Mara ordered. Silas can get you to the secondary location in 2 hours. Leave the car. Take the back trail. No, I said. Addison, this is not a debate. Blackwood is not a law firm. They are thugs. If they get into that cabin, they will take the box, and they will force you to sign a power of attorney. You need to run. I looked at the fireplace. I looked at the box of evidence sitting on the table, the legacy of my mother's silent suffering. I had spent 33 years running. I had run from confrontation. I had run from conflict. I had run to the office to fix their mistakes. I had run to the bank to cover their debts. I had run out of the house on Christmas night. I was tired of running. I am not leaving, I said. Addison. Let them come, I interrupted, my voice low and steady. If they want the keys to the empire, they can come and get them, but they are not going to like what they find. What are you going to do? Mara asked, her voice filled with dread. I am going to finish this, I said. You file the injunction. Mara, get it on the docket, but do not expect me to show up in court tomorrow. I have a meeting with my family. Addison, do not do anything stupid. I am done being smart. Mara, smart got me forged signatures and a ruined reputation. Now I am going to be something else. What? The rightful owner, I said. I hung up the phone. Silas came back inside, the tracker in his hand. He looked at me, waiting for the order to pack up. Crush it, I said, pointing to the device. Silas dropped the tracker on the stone hearth and brought his heavy boot down on it. Plastic crunched. The blinking red light died. Are we evacuating? Silas asked. No, I said. We are fortifying. I walked over to the wooden box. I took out the documents, the undeniable proof of $15 million in theft. I took out the USB drive. They are coming for this, I told Silas, and they are bringing help. Silas cracked his knuckles. He was a large man, but more importantly, he was a man who despised bullies. Mara had told me he used to be a marshal before he went private. How much time do we have? Silas asked. If they were tracking the car live, I calculated, and they saw it stop here 4 hours ago, they are probably 40 minutes out, maybe less. I looked around the cabin. It was sturdy, heavy oak doors, thick shutters. It was built to withstand avalanches and blizzards. It could withstand Gordon Carey. Lock the doors, I said. Close the shutters. I sat down at the heavy dining table and placed the box in the center. I opened my laptop and pulled up the external interface for the Carey Ridge security system, the one at the main estate. I still had the admin codes. They had locked me out of the bank, but they had forgotten to lock me out of the house controls. If they were coming to my house, I was going to pay a visit to theirs. I started typing, my fingers flying across the keys. I disabled the heating system in the main estate. I triggered the fire suppression sprinklers in the study where Gordon kept his illegal ledger. I initiated a remote wipe of the server in the basement. If they wanted a war, I would give them a war on two fronts. I checked the time, 3 in the afternoon. The winter sun was already dipping behind the peaks, casting long blue shadows across the snow. Darkness was coming early. "Addison," Silas said from the window, his voice dropping an octave. "Headlights? Bottom of the road?" I stood up and walked to the peephole. 3 large black SUVs were winding their way up the snowy track. They looked like hearses. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I touched the envelope in my pocket. My mother's letter. "Burn it down if you have to." "Welcome to the family reunion," I whispered. I turned to Silas. "Let them get to the porch. I want them to look me in the eye when they lose." The heavy oak door of the cabin shook under the force of the fist on the other side. It was not a knock. It was a demand for submission. A sound I had heard 1,000 times in the form of slammed desks and thrown ledgers, but never this close, never this raw. Silas stood by the door, his hand resting casually on his belt, his posture relaxed but alert. He looked at me, raising an eyebrow, waiting for my signal. "Addison!" My father's voice boomed through the wood, muffled but unmistakable. It carried the same tone he used when a waiter brought him the wrong wine, a mix of disbelief and simmering rage. "I know you are in there. Open this door immediately. We are not playing these games anymore." I stood in the center of the living room, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, holding my secure phone. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic rhythm that usually preceded a panic attack. But tonight, the panic did not come. Instead, I felt a strange, icy clarity. I was safe, the door was locked, and for the first time in 33 years, I had the power to keep it that way. "Do not answer," I whispered to Silas. "Addie, please." This was Blair. Her voice was pitched high, trembling with a performance of sisterly concern that would have won her an award. "It is freezing out here. We just want to talk. We are worried about you. Please, just let us in so we can fix this." Fix this. That was their code word. Fix this meant cover it up. Fix this meant sign the papers and take the blame. I looked down at the phone. Mara was already on the line. "They are here," I said into the receiver. "I hear them." Mara's voice came through, sharp and efficient. "The sheriff's deputies are 2 minutes out. I called them the moment you told me you saw the headlights. Do not open that door. Addison, under no circumstances." "I am not opening it," I said. "Addison!" Gordon roared again, and this time, the door handle rattled violently. He was trying to force it. "You are stealing company property. You are in possession of confidential files. If you do not open this door in 10 seconds, I will have my men break it down." I walked closer to the door, stopping just out of the line of sight of the peephole. I wanted him to hear me. I wanted him to know I was not hiding under the bed. "Go away, Dad," I said. My voice was not loud, but in the sudden silence following his shouting, it cut through the wood like a knife. "Addison?" He sounded shocked that I had spoken. "Open this door. Now. You are sick. You are having a breakdown. We have a doctor here to help you." "I do not need a doctor," I said. "And I do not need a lawyer. I need you to get off my property." "Your property?" Gordon laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Everything you have is mine. I bought this cabin. I bought the clothes on your back. You are nothing without me. Now open the door and sign the authorization for the bank release, or so help me God. I will ruin you." The mask had slipped. The worried father act had lasted exactly 30 seconds before the desperate CEO emerged. He did not care about my health. He cared about the frozen accounts. "It is over. Gordon," I said. "I found the box. I found Mom's letter. And I found the loan documents you forged." There was a silence on the other side of the door so profound it felt like the air had been sucked out of the universe. You do not know what you are looking at," Gordon stammered, his voice dropping. "Those were preliminary drafts. Addison, listen to me. Open the door. We can work this out. I can explain." "There is nothing to explain," I said. "Addie, seriously," Blair pleaded, her voice closer now, pressing against the wood. Dad is shaking. He is going to have a heart attack. Do you want to kill him? Just let us in. We can make a deal. Whatever you want. You want the beach house? It is yours. You want a seat on the board? Done. Just open the door. They were bargaining. They were terrified. Suddenly, the cabin was illuminated by a wash of rotating blue and red lights. The strobe effect flashed through the cracks in the shutters, painting the room in a chaotic disco of law enforcement colors. "What is this?" I heard Gordon yell. "Who called them?" I moved to the window and peered through the slats. 2 sheriff's cruisers had pulled up behind the black SUVs, blocking the driveway. 4 deputies were stepping out, their hands resting on their holsters, their breath pluming in the cold mountain air. Silas stepped forward and unlocked the heavy deadbolt. "Stay behind me," he instructed. He opened the door. The cold air rushed in, bringing with it the smell of exhaust and pine. I stepped onto the porch, pulling the blanket tighter around me. The scene before me was almost theatrical. My father stood on the bottom step of the porch, wearing a long cashmere coat that looked ridiculous in the rugged terrain. Blair was shivering next to him in a fur-lined parka, her makeup smeared. Behind them stood 3 large men, the private security team, who were currently looking very uncomfortable as the deputies approached. "What is the meaning of this?" Gordon demanded. Turning to face the lead deputy, he puffed out his chest, trying to summon the authority he wielded in the boardroom. "I am Gordon Carey. This is a private family matter. We are retrieving my daughter who is suffering from a mental health crisis." The lead deputy, a burly man named Miller, who looked like he had spent his entire life dealing with storms and bears, did not look impressed. "We got a call about a disturbance," Miller said, his voice flat, "and about a potential trespassing situation." "Trespassing?" Gordon sputtered. "I own this land. That is my daughter." "Actually," I said, my voice ringing out in the cold air. All heads turned to me. Gordon looked at me with eyes that promised murder. Blair looked at me with wide, panicked eyes. "This property belongs to the Marianne Carey Testamentary Trust," I said, reciting the legal reality I had only learned 3 days ago. "I am the sole trustee. Gordon Carey has no legal claim to this land, and he has been asked to leave. He is currently trespassing." "She is insane!" Blair shrieked, pointing a gloved finger at me. "Officer, look at her! She stole millions of dollars from our company and ran away. We are just trying to get her help." "I am fine, officer," I said calmly. "My lawyer, Mara Keene, is on the phone right now if you need to verify the ownership of the property." Gordon took a step toward the porch. "Addison, tell them to leave, right now. If you do not, I will have you declared incompetent by morning. Do not test me." Silas stepped in front of me, his massive frame blocking Gordon's path. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. "Sir," Deputy Miller said, stepping between Gordon and the stairs, "I need you to step back." "Do not touch me," Gordon snapped, swatting at the deputy's hand. "Do you know who I am? I sit on the board of the Police Benevolent Association. I will have your badge." It was the wrong thing to say. Deputy Miller's expression hardened. "Sir, step back to your vehicle, now." "I am not leaving without my daughter," Gordon shouted, losing all control. He looked wild, his hair disheveled by the wind. "She has company property. She has my files." "I have evidence," I corrected him. "Officer!" A voice called out from the darkness beyond the driveway. We all looked toward the trees. A figure was trudging through the snow, carrying a shotgun broken open over his arm. It was Mr. Gable, the nearest neighbor, a retired mechanic who lived half a mile down the ridge. "Mr. Gable?" Deputy Miller nodded. "Everything all right?" "Not with all this racket, Mr. Gable grunted. Stopping at the edge of the light, he pointed a calloused thumb at Gordon. "These folks nearly ran me off the road coming up here, driving like maniacs, and they have been pounding on that girl's door for 10 minutes screaming threats. Heard 'em clear from my porch." "They were threatening her?" Miller asked. "Said they were going to break the door down," Mr. Gable confirmed. "Said they were going to ruin her. Did not sound like no family visit to me. Sounded like a debt collection." Gordon's face went purple. "This is a conspiracy. You people are all idiots. I am taking my daughter." He lunged. It was a desperate, foolish move. He tried to push past the deputy to get to the stairs. In a second, Gordon Carey, the Titan of Briarwood Falls, was spun around and pressed against the hood of his own black SUV. "Get your hands off me," he screamed. "This is assault." "Dad!" Blair wailed, rushing forward, but another deputy held her back. "Do not arrest him. He is stressed. Please." "I am not arresting him yet," Deputy Miller said, pinning Gordon there. "But I am issuing a lawful order. You are to leave this property immediately. If you return, or if you contact Ms. Carey again tonight, you will be arrested for harassment and trespassing. Do I make myself clear?" Gordon struggled for a moment, then went limp against the car. He turned his head to look at me. I stood on the porch, looking down at him. For my entire life, I had looked up to him, I had feared him, I had thought he was 10 feet tall. Now, pressed against the cold metal of a car hood, breathless and defeated, he looked exactly like what he was, an old man who had run out of lies. "Addison," he wheezed, "the auditors, they will put you in jail. I am the only one who can protect you." "I do not need your protection, Dad," I said softly. "I never did. I just needed you to be a father. But that job was too hard for you." Deputy Miller released him. Gordon straightened his coat, trying to regain some shred of dignity. He glared at the deputy, then at Mr. Gable, and finally at me. "You are making a mistake," he hissed. "You will be begging me to take you back in a week." "The week is almost up, Gordon," I said, "and I am still standing." He motioned to his security team. "Let us go." He got into the SUV without waiting for Blair. Blair lingered for a second, looking at me with a mixture of hatred and confusion. She had never seen our father lose before. It shattered her worldview more than the bankruptcy ever could. "You are selfish," she spat at me. "Mom would be ashamed of you." "Mom gave me the box. Blair," I said. Blair's face went white. She scrambled into the car. The SUVs reversed awkwardly in the snow, their tires spinning, before heading back down the mountain. The deputies stayed, watching them go. "Mr. Gable tipped his cap to me. "You all right, miss?" "I am," I said, and I meant it. "Thank you, Mr. Gable." "Never liked that SUV crowd," he muttered, turning back toward the woods. Deputy Miller walked up to the porch. "We will keep a unit at the bottom of the road for the rest of the night. Ms. Carey, just in case." "Thank you, Deputy," I said. I watched them get back into their cruisers. The blue lights turned off, leaving the cabin in darkness again. But it was not a scary darkness anymore. It was a peaceful one. I walked back inside and closed the door. Silas locked the deadbolt. "They are running scared," Silas observed, moving to the window to watch the taillights fade. "Yes," I said. "They came here to force me to surrender. Instead, they just gave me the last piece of evidence I needed." "What is that?" "Desperation," I said. "Innocent men do not assault police officers. Innocent men do not break down doors in the middle of the night." I picked up the phone to call Mara back. "They are gone," I said. "I heard," Mara said. "I have the police report number from the dispatch. Addison, this is it, with the witness testimony from your neighbor and the police report of their aggression. The judge will grant the restraining order in the morning, and Gordon's attempt to declare you incompetent is dead in the water. No judge will grant a conservatorship to a man who just assaulted a sheriff's deputy." "Then we proceed?" I asked. "We proceed," Mara said. "I am filing the master complaint at 9 in the morning. By noon, the banks will be notified of the fraud. By 1, the board will be notified." "Do it," I said. I hung up the phone and sat down by the fire. My hands were finally steady. I had spent my life fixing their mistakes, patching up the cracks in their foundation. Tonight, I had watched them take a sledgehammer to it themselves. They had come to destroy me, but all they had done was show the world exactly who they were. And tomorrow, The world would see the receipts. The conference room at Keene and Associates was a study in intimidation. It was a glass box suspended 40 stories above the street, offering a panoramic view of the city my father claimed to own, but which I was currently dismantling piece by piece. The table was a slab of black marble, cold to the touch. I sat on one side, my hands folded in my lap, staring at a smudge on the polished surface. Next to me, Mara Keene arranged her files with the precise, lethal movements of a surgeon preparing to amputate a limb. At exactly 9 o'clock in the morning, the double doors opened. Gordon Carey walked in first. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in 3 days. His skin was sallow, his eyes bloodshot, and there was a tremor in his hand that he tried to hide by shoving it into the pocket of his bespoke suit. Blair followed him, looking less like a socialite and more like a cornered animal. She wore large sunglasses, even indoors, likely to hide the puffiness of eyes that had been crying or not sleeping. Trailing them was Arthur Sterling. I knew of him by reputation. He was a bulldog of a lawyer, a man who charged $1,000 an hour to bully opponents into submission. He slammed his briefcase onto the marble table, a deliberate noise meant to startle us. I did not blink. "Let us make this quick," Sterling barked, not bothering to sit down. "My client, Mr. Carey, is prepared to offer a settlement. If Ms. Carey returns the stolen digital keys, provides the passwords to the offshore accounts, and signs a non-disclosure agreement regarding her episode at the cabin, we are willing to drop the petition for conservatorship. We will even allow her to retain a small stipend from the family trust." He looked at me, expecting gratitude. It is a generous offer, considering the damage she has caused to the company's reputation. Gordon sat down heavily, glaring at me. "Just sign it, Addison. Stop this charade. The auditors are asking questions I cannot answer without those logs." I remained silent. I looked at Mara. Mara adjusted her glasses. She did not look at Sterling. She looked directly at Gordon. "Mr. Sterling," Mara said, her voice conversational, as if discussing the weather. "I believe you are operating under a significant misapprehension regarding the hierarchy of this meeting. You are not here to make an offer. You are here so we can explain why your client is not going to prison today, although that window is closing rapidly." Sterling let out a dry, condescending laugh. "Prison? For what? Being a concerned father? Ms. Keene, if you think you can blackmail us with some hysterical story about—" Mara held up a hand. It was a small gesture, but it silenced the room instantly. "Item 1, Mara said, sliding a single document across the black marble. "The Marianne Carey Testamentary Trust. As of 4 days ago, Addison Carey is not an employee of Carey Ridge Developments. She is the majority shareholder of the voting stock. Gordon Carey serves at the pleasure of the board, and the board is the trust, and the trust is Addison." Gordon scoffed. "That is a technicality. Marianne never understood business. I have run this company for 30 years. "You have run it into the ground," Mara corrected. "Which brings us to item 2. She slid the second stack of papers across the table. These were the copies of the loan documents I had found in the wooden box. The ones with the signature that looked like mine, but wasn't. $5 million from the Chicago equity firm, Mara recited. $2 million from the Cayman Holding Company, $3 million in personal guarantees against Addison's future assets. Sterling picked up the documents. He scanned them, his eyebrows knitting together. He was a shark, but sharks know blood when they see it. He saw the dates. "These are standard liquidity injections," Sterling argued, though his voice lacked its earlier punch. "Ms. Carey signed them as the guarantor, if she forgot. That is further proof of her mental decline." "Look at the date on the Chicago loan," Mara said softly. "October 14th, 2021. "So," Blair snapped, "Addie signs things all the time." "On October 14th, 2021, Mara said, looking at Blair with pity. "Addison was in the intensive care unit at Mercy General Hospital with double pneumonia. She was in a medically induced coma. I have the medical records right here." Mara slammed a thick medical file onto the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Unless Addison learned to sign complex liability waivers while unconscious and intubated, Mara said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, this signature is a forgery, and since the beneficiary of the loan was a company controlled by Gordon Carey, that is federal bank fraud, it is identity theft, and it is grand larceny. The room went deadly silent. Sterling looked at the document again. He looked at Gordon. Gordon, is this true? Was she in the hospital? Gordon pulled at his collar. Sweat was beading on his forehead. I had verbal authorization. She told me to handle it. It was an emergency. You forged her signature, Gordon, Sterling said, his face draining of color. He dropped the paper as if it were radioactive. You told me these were legitimate. If you forged these, I cannot defend this. That is a felony. It was for the family, Gordon shouted, slamming his fist on the table. We needed the cash. The West Ridge project was over budget. I did what I had to do to save the legacy. You stole from your daughter, I said. It was the first time I had spoken since they entered. My voice was low, but it seemed to fill the room. I did not steal, Gordon spat at me. It is all the same pot. It is Carey money. You are just the vessel. And you, I said, turning my eyes to Blair. Blair flinched. She shrank back in her chair. I did not know, she whispered. Addie, I swear, I thought you signed them. Dad said you signed them. Item 3, Mara interrupted, cutting off Blair's lie. Mara placed a small laptop on the table. She turned it so the speakers faced the family. She clicked a file named The Last Talk. My mother's voice filled the air. It was ghostly, thin, but undeniably her. It is fraud. Gordon, you are signing her name to loans you cannot repay. You are planning to frame her. Then Gordon's voice, booming and arrogant, the voice of a man who thought he was a god. She is an employee, and a very useful one. I will not let a bank take it away. Addison is the shield. Blair let out a sob. She covered her mouth with her hand, staring at her father with wide, horrified eyes. You knew, Blair whispered through her fingers. You told me she was ruining the company. You told me she was incompetent, but you were the one sinking us. You were setting her up to go to jail so you could keep the house. I did it for you, Gordon roared, turning on Blair. Who do you think pays for your Aspen trips? Who pays for your gala dresses? You think money grows on trees? I had to feed the beast, Blair, and you are the beast. Do not blame this on me, Blair shrieked, standing up. I asked you if we could afford the renovation, and you said yes. You lied to me too. You are a parasite, Gordon yelled back. Both of you. I carried you on my back for 40 years. Gentlemen, ladies, Sterling shouted, trying to regain control of the room. Stop talking, right now. Gordon, shut your mouth. But the dam had broken. The carefully constructed image of the Carey family, the united front, the dynasty, was dissolving into a puddle of recriminations and panic. I sat there, watching them. I felt like a scientist observing a chemical reaction. They were eating each other. All I had to do was provide the catalyst. Mara closed the laptop. The click was final. We are filing the fraud report with the Securities and Exchange Commission at noon. Mara stated, we are filing the police report regarding the forgery at 1 o'clock, and at 2 o'clock, Addison is calling a board meeting to vote for your removal as CEO. Gordon. Gordon slumped in his chair. The fight had gone out of him. He looked at the medical records. He looked at the loan documents. He looked at the daughter he had underestimated for 3 decades. Addison, he croaked, please, if you do this, the stock will crash. The Carey name will be mud. We will be bankrupt. I looked at him. I thought about the week I supposedly wouldn't last. I thought about the snow. I thought about the silence of the cabin. The name is already mud. Dad, I said, you just do not see the dirt yet because you are standing in it. We can make a deal, Sterling tried, but he sounded desperate now. Restitution? Gordon can step down voluntarily? We can cite health reasons? No deals, I said. Addison, please, Blair cried, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. They will take the house. They will take my car. I do not know how to do anything else. I cannot get a job. I'm 35 years old. Then you have a lot of catching up to do, I said. I stood up. Addison, wait. Gordon reached out a hand across the table. His fingers were trembling. I am your father. I looked at his hand. It was the hand that had signed my name while I lay dying in a hospital bed. No, I said. You are just a man who owes me $15 million. I turned to Mara. I am done here. I will wrap up the paperwork, Mara said, a small, satisfied smile playing on her lips. I walked toward the double doors. Behind me, the sound of arguing erupted again. Gordon was blaming the lawyers. Blair was crying about her reputation. Sterling was trying to pack his briefcase and flee the sinking ship. I walked out into the hallway and the heavy doors swung shut, cutting off the noise. The silence returned. It was beautiful. I walked to the elevator and pressed the down button. I was going to the lobby to buy a coffee. A cheap, bitter coffee that I would pay for with my own money. The empire had not just cracked, it had shattered, and the sound of it breaking was the sweetest music I had ever heard. The collapse of the Kerry Ridge Empire did not happen in months or weeks. It happened in hours. By 10 o'clock in the morning, 1 hour after I walked out of the conference room, the first domino fell. The Independent Audit Committee, triggered by the discrepancies Mara and I had flagged, initiated a forensic lockdown of the company servers. Usually, these things take days to authorize, but when the majority shareholder, me, gives the green light, the red tape vanishes. I sat in Mara's secondary office, a small room filled with humming servers, watching the digital dismantling of my father's legacy. It was like watching a building implode in slow motion. David Lancer, the auditor who had threatened me just the day before, was now working for me. He called at 10:30. Ms. Carey? Lancer's voice was clipped, stripped of the aggression he had shown when he thought I was the criminal. We have accessed the shadow ledger. It is worse than we thought. The Chicago loan? The $5 million? It never touched the construction accounts. Where did it go? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. It was routed through a shell corporation in Delaware, then bounced to an account in the Cayman Islands, and finally repatriated to a private account under the name G&B Holdings. We are seeing outflows for personal expenses, massive ones. Quantify it, I said. In the last 18 months alone? $2,400,000, Lancer said. Chartered jets, a villa rental in Tuscany, high-stakes gambling debts settled in Las Vegas, and jewelry, a lot of jewelry. I closed my eyes. They had not just stolen my credit rating to save the company. They had stolen it to maintain a lifestyle they could no longer afford. They were wearing my credit score on their wrists and necks. By noon, the external partners began to flee. News of the audit had leaked. In Briarwood Falls, secrets have a shelf life of about 5 minutes. The subcontractors for the West Ridge project, men who had known my father for decades, walked off the job site. They knew that if the feds were involved, no one was getting paid. My phone, the secure one, buzzed. It was a text from the bank. Alert. All corporate credit cards issued to Gordon Carey and Blair Carey have been suspended due to insufficient collateral. I took a sip of cold coffee. It was done. The cash flow was severed. Then came the rat. At 1:15, my phone rang. It was Blair, but she was not screaming this time. Her voice was a hushed whisper. Addie, can you hear me? I can hear you, Blair, I said. I am at the coffee shop on 4th Street, she said. I am not with Dad. I slipped away. He is losing it. Addie, he is throwing things. He punched a hole in the drywall. I am scared. You should be, I said. Can I see you? She asked. Just us? Sisters? Please, I have information. I know where he keeps the other ledger, the physical one. I can give it to you. I hesitated. It was a trap. It had to be. But Blair was not a strategist. She was a survivor. If the ship was sinking, she would climb over our father's head to get to the lifeboat. "You have 20 minutes," I said. "Come to the back entrance of the Keene building, alone." I met her in the loading bay. It was a gray, the concrete space that smelled of diesel and snow. Blair arrived in a taxi, a first for her. She stepped out, looking like a refugee from a fashion magazine. Her coat was cashmere, but her face was pale, stripped of its usual arrogance. She ran toward me, her heels clicking on the concrete. She looked like she wanted to hug me. I took a step back. "Stop right there," I said. Blair froze. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Addie, I swear, I did not know about the forgery. I knew we were in debt, but I thought you agreed to help. Dad told me you volunteered." "You saw the documents, Blair," I said cold. "You saw the dates. You knew I was in a coma. Do not lie to me, not now." "I was scared," she sobbed. "He controls everything. If I questioned him, he threatened to cut me off. You know how he is. He made me terrified of being poor." "So you decided to make me a criminal instead," I said. "I am sorry," she cried. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small black notebook. "Here, this is it. He keeps it in the safe in the pool house. I stole it this morning while he was screaming at the lawyers." I took the notebook. I didn't open it yet. "What do you want, Blair?" "I want immunity," she said, her voice trembling. "I want you to tell the lawyers that I was a passive beneficiary, that I was manipulated. If I testify against Dad, will you let me keep the condo? Just the condo. I will sell the car. I will get a job. Just do not make me homeless." I looked at her, my older sister, the one who had told me I wouldn't last a week. Now she was selling out our father for a 2-bedroom apartment. "It is not up to me," I said. "It is up to the forensic accountants. If the money you spent came from the stolen funds, the condo is gone. It is evidence, Blair." "But you can stop them," she pleaded, grabbing my arm. "You are the trustee. You can say it was a gift. Addie, please, think about Mom." I stiffened. "Do not bring her into this." "She would not want this," Blair said, her voice taking on a desperate, manipulative edge. "She wanted us to take care of each other. She kept the family together. If she were here, she would be heartbroken to see you doing this to us. You are destroying her legacy too." "Mom is the one who gave me the match. Blair," I said, pulling my arm away. "She did not want a legacy built on fraud. She wanted the truth." "She wanted peace," Blair screamed. "You are just being vindictive. You are enjoying this. You love seeing us beg." "I do not love it," I said, looking at her with genuine sadness. "I hate it. I hate that it took a federal investigation for you to treat me like a person. But I am not stopping. The only way out is through the truth. Total transparency. Can you offer that?" Blair wiped her face. Her expression hardened. The frightened sister vanished, replaced by the cornered Carrie. "You will regret this," she hissed. "You think you are the hero? You are just the executioner. You are killing your own family." "The family died a long time ago," I said. "I am just burying the body." I turned and walked back toward the elevator. I did not look back. Back in the office, I opened the black notebook Blair had given me. It was the final nail. It was a handwritten log of bribes. Bribes to inspectors, bribes to zoning officials, and payments to a private investigator to dig up dirt on me, months before I even left. Gordon had been planning to blackmail me into silence if I ever found out about the loans. He had been manufacturing a dossier of lies, drug use, instability, promiscuity, to use against his own daughter. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach. Mara walked in. "The SEC is on line 1. They are ready to receive the formal complaint, but they need your final authorization to freeze the personal assets of Gordon and Blair Carey. This includes the primary residence." I looked at the phone. I thought about the Christmas dinner. I thought about the hospital bed where I lay dying while they forged my name. I thought about the 1-week bet. "Do it," I said. "Are you sure?" Mara asked. Once I send this file, there is no turning back. They will be raided. It will be on the national news tonight. I am sure, I said. I forwarded the digital files of the notebook, the recordings, and the bank traces to the secure portal of the Department of Justice. I watched the progress bar fill up, green, complete. I had just officially accused my father and sister of federal crimes. 5 minutes later, my secure phone buzzed. It was not a notification. It was a text message from a burner number, but I knew the voice. From unknown. You ungrateful little rat. You think you have won? You have no idea what you have started. I will burn this whole town to the ground before I let you take my company. Watch your back. Addison, the week is not over yet. I stared at the screen. Gordon was not negotiating anymore. He was hunting. I showed the message to Mara. She read it and immediately signaled to Silas. We need to move her, Mara said. The legal battle is won, but the physical danger just spiked. Gordon has nothing left to lose, and a man with nothing to lose is capable of anything. I am not running, I said again. You are not running, Mara agreed. You are taking the high ground. We are going to the one place he cannot touch you, the boardroom. The boardroom? The emergency shareholder meeting is in 1 hour, Mara said, checking her watch. He thinks he can threaten you from the shadows? Let us drag him into the light. You are going to walk in there, take his seat, and fire him to his face. I stood up. I buttoned my coat. Let us go, I said. The empire had crumbled. Now it was time to sweep away the dust. The boardroom of Cary Ridge Developments had always intimidated me. It was a cavernous space of mahogany and glass, designed to make anyone who wasn't Gordon Cary feel small. The long table, polished to a mirror shine, had hosted senators, governors, and billionaires. Today, however, it hosted the execution squad. I walked in at exactly 2 o'clock. The room was already full. On the left side of the table sat the representatives from Sovereign Bank, the lead investigators from the Securities and Exchange Commission, and David Lancer, the forensic auditor. They looked like grim reapers in navy blue suits. On the right side sat my father and Blair, flanked by Arthur Sterling and 2 junior attorneys who looked like they wanted to be anywhere else on earth. Gordon stood at the head of the table, my seat, leaning on his knuckles. He looked up when I entered. His face was a map of sleepless nights and boiling rage, but he straightened his tie, trying to summon the ghost of his former authority. You are late, Gordon said, his voice tight. Sit down, Addison. We are fixing this mess you created. I did not sit. I walked to the window end of the table, opposite him. I placed my laptop and the heavy wooden box on the table. I am not here to fix anything, Gordon, I said, my voice steady. And you are sitting in the trustee's chair. Move. Gordon's face reddened. I am the CEO of this company. I built this room. You think because you found some old papers you can walk in here and dictate terms? I have already spoken to the bank. We have explained the discrepancies. It was a clerical error in the automated system. We are restructuring the debt. He looked at the bank representatives, a desperate smile plastered on his face. Isn't that right, gentlemen? A simple restructuring. The senior VP of Sovereign Bank, a man named Mr. Henderson, did not return the smile. He looked at me. Ms. Cary, we are not here for a restructuring. We are here because you invoked the material breach clause of the Master Lending Agreement. We are waiting for your presentation. She has no presentation, Sterling interjected, standing up. This is a family dispute that has spiraled out of control. My client is prepared to offer Ms. Cary a generous settlement to step down as trustee due to medical incompetence. Sit down, Arthur, I said. I opened the wooden box. I took out the original copy of the Marianne Cary Trust. Gentlemen, I addressed the auditors and bankers. You have seen the digital copies of the forged loans. You have seen the hospital records proving I was in a coma when $15 million was borrowed in my name. But there is one document you have not seen yet, my mother's failsafe. I slid a single sheet of parchment across the table. Article 9, Section 4 of the Trust, I read aloud. my eyes locking with Gordon's. The protective fiduciary clause. It states that if any beneficiary of the trust, that means you, Gordon, and you, Blair, is found to have acted with malice or intent to defraud the trustee, their status as a beneficiary is immediately revoked, not suspended, revoked, permanently. Gordon froze. That is not enforceable. Marianne was dying when she wrote that. She wasn't lucid. It was notarized 3 years before she died, I corrected him. And it gets better. The clause also states that in the event of such a breach, all assets previously distributed to the offending beneficiaries are subject to immediate clawback to make the trust whole. I turned to David Lancer. Mr. Lancer, based on your forensic analysis, how much money have Gordon and Blair Carey extracted from the company for personal use in the last 5 years? Lancer adjusted his glasses and looked at his spreadsheet, including the unauthorized jet charters, the jewelry purchases, the gambling debts, and the consulting fees paid to shell companies. The total is approximately $18,400,000. Blair let out a sharp gasp. $18 million? That is impossible. The receipts do not lie, Blair, I said, and since you are both now stripped of your beneficiary status, you owe that money back to the trust, to me. I do not have $18 million, Blair screamed, standing up. I have $4,000 in my checking account. He told me we were rich. She pointed a shaking finger at Gordon. You said the well was deep. You said it never ran dry. Shut up, Blair, Gordon roared. He turned to me, his eyes wild. You cannot do this. You are destroying the company to spite me. If you trigger this clause, the bank calls the loans. The stock goes to zero. Carey Ridge Development ceases to exist. You will be the queen of a graveyard. I know, I said. I looked at Mr. Henderson from the bank. Mr. Henderson, as the sole trustee, I am formally notifying you that Carey Ridge Developments is insolvent. The assets used to secure your loans were fraudulently obtained by the former CEO. I am authorizing you to seize the collateral. The collateral? Gordon whispered. What collateral? The estate, I said. The summer house, the fleet of cars, and the land this building sits on. It was all cross-collateralized against the loans you forged. Gordon slumped back into the chair. He looked like he had been shot. My house? You are giving them my house? It is not your house, I said. It belongs to the bank now. You have until midnight to vacate. You are a monster, Gordon hissed. I gave you life. I gave you a home, and you repay me by making me homeless? You gave me a cage, Gordon, I said, and you made me pay rent for it with my own sanity. I turned to the screen at the end of the room and plugged in my laptop. There is one last thing, the final audit of the consulting fees. A spreadsheet appeared on the screen. It showed a list of payments made to a company called Sterling Strategy Group. Arthur Sterling went pale. He started packing his briefcase. It seems my father's lawyer has been receiving $50,000 a month from the construction budget, I said. Mr. Sterling, I assume you declared these payments to the Bar Association? Or were they for off-the-books legal services, like intimidation? Sterling looked at the SEC investigators, who were now taking furious notes. He didn't say a word. He just walked out of the room, leaving his clients alone. He is leaving, Blair whimpered. Dad, do something. Stop him. Gordon did not move. He was staring at the table, his hands trembling uncontrollably. The Titan was gone. All that was left was a frightened old man facing federal indictments. Why? Gordon asked, his voice cracking. Why go this far? You could have just taken the money. We could have worked together. Because you said I wouldn't last a week, I said. I closed my laptop. The sound echoed in the silent room. It has been exactly 7 days, Gordon, and look at us. I am the only one left standing. I turned to the bank representatives and the auditors. The data is yours. The files are unlocked. I will remain available for the criminal investigation, but effective immediately. I am resigning as the operational manager of Carey Ridge Developments. There is nothing left to manage. Ms. Carey, Mr. Henderson said, standing up out of respect. We appreciate your cooperation. Security is waiting outside to escort the former management off the premises. I looked at Gordon and Blair one last time. Blair was sobbing into her hands. Gordon was staring blankly at the wall, muttering about market fluctuations. They were trapped in a prison of their own making, a prison of debt, lies, and consequences. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel sadness. I felt weightless. I picked up my mother's wooden box. I walked to the door. Addison, Gordon called out. One last, desperate plea. Where are you going? You cannot leave us here. I paused with my hand on the brass handle. I am going to get lunch, I said, and I am paying with my own card. I walked out. The hallway was quiet. I walked past the receptionist's desk, past the portraits of my father that lined the walls, portraits that would be taken down by the foreclosure crew tomorrow. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. As the elevator descended, I watched the numbers count down, 40, 30, 20. Each floor was a layer of burden shedding from my shoulders. The expectations, the insults, the fear. The doors opened to the lobby. The air outside was crisp and cold, the snow reflecting the bright winter sun. I stepped out onto the sidewalk of Briarwood Falls. The wind hit my face, sharp and clean. I took a deep breath. It was the first breath I had taken in 33 years that truly belonged to me. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the bank app on my new phone. Transfer complete. The remnants of my mother's personal trust, the clean money, the money they hadn't been able to touch, was safe in an account that only I could access. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. Enough to start over. Enough to be Addison. I turned my collar up against the wind and started walking. Not toward a destination, just forward. They told me I wouldn't last a week. They were right. The girl who sat at that dinner table didn't last. She died in the snow that first night. The woman walking down the street today? She was just getting started. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and let's chat. If you enjoyed seeing Addison burn the empire down, please make sure to subscribe to the Lila Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and hit that hype button so we can share this story with even more people.